The rain came down like a curtain of knives, slicing through the dim Seattle dusk. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white, as the wipers fought a losing battle against the deluge. The radio crackled with a storm warning, 60-mile-an-hour winds, flash floods, power lines down across King County. My old Corolla shuddered as a gust slammed into it, and for a moment I thought the tires might lift off the slick pavement of our quiet cul-de-sac. I was late, the trunk stuffed with groceries I'd grabbed after a 12-hour shift at the diner, my uniform still clinging to my skin, smelling faintly of fryer grease and desperation. All I wanted was to get inside, kick off my soggy sneakers, and forget the world for a few hours. But then I saw her. She stood by our mailbox, a frail silhouette against the flickering street lamp, an elderly woman, maybe in her 70s, her thin frame trembling under a threadbare coat that looked more like a sodden rag. Her silver hair was plastered to her scalp, and her shoes, God, her shoes, were so worn they seemed to melt into the pavement. She wasn't moving, just staring down the street, as if waiting for something the storm had already swallowed. My breath fogged the windshield as I squinted through the rain. Nobody else was out here. The neighborhood was a ghost town, windows shuttered, porch lights dark. Just her, alone, shaking like a leaf in the wind. I should have kept driving. That's what Margaret would have said, my mother with her wineglass always half full and her patience always half empty. "Don't stick your neck out, Zoya," she'd snap. "You've got enough problems without borrowing someone else's." But something about the woman's stillness, the way her hands clutched at nothing, pulled at me. I couldn't just leave her there. Not in this storm. Not when she looked like she might break apart any second. I grabbed my umbrella from the passenger seat, its cheap fabric already torn from last week's windstorm. My hoodie was soaked the moment I stepped out, the cold biting through to my bones. I jogged toward her, the wind shoving me sideways, my sneakers splashing in ankle-deep puddles. "Ma'am?" I called, keeping my voice soft like I was approaching a startled animal. "Are you okay?" She didn't look at me at first. Her eyes stayed fixed on the horizon, distant and cloudy, like she was seeing something I couldn't. Then, slowly, she turned her head. Her lips trembled, pale and cracked. I was trying to get to the corner store," she said, her voice barely audible over the howling wind. "I think I got turned around. The corner store was 3 blocks away, and in this weather it might as well have been 3 miles. "Okay," I said, stepping closer, holding the umbrella over her even as it buckled under the rain. "Let's get you out of this storm first. Come with me to my porch, all right?" I slipped off my jacket, my only good one, the one I'd saved up for 2 months to buy, and draped it over her shoulders. Her skin felt like ice under my fingers, fragile as tissue paper. She didn't resist, just let me guide her, her steps slow and unsteady, like she hadn't walked in a long time. We were halfway to the house when the front door flew open with a screech. Margaret stood there, one hand on her hip, the other clutching her wineglass like a lifeline. Even in the storm, her blonde hair was perfect, her silk robe pristine. "Zoya, what the hell are you doing?" she shouted, her voice sharp enough to cut through the wind. "Why are you dragging strays into our yard?" Behind her, my siblings appeared, dry and smug in the doorway. Ethan, my older brother, smirked, his arms crossed. "Still playing superhero, huh, Zoya?" Lila, my younger sister, chimed in, her voice dripping with venom. "She's probably faking it. You're gonna catch pneumonia for nothing." I didn't answer. I never did when they ganged up like this. It was easier to let their words slide off, like rain on a windshield. I focused on the woman, Evelyn, she'd whispered her name was, helping her up the porch steps. Her weight leaned into me, light but unsteady, like she might collapse if I let go. I eased her onto the porch swing, its chains creaking under the damp wood. "I'm Zoya," I said, crouching beside her. "You're safe now. Let me call someone to help." Her eyes met mine, soft and gray, like the storm itself had settled in them. "Evelyn," she murmured again, her voice stronger now. "Thank you, dear." She gave a small, shy smile, and something about it felt like a crack of light in the dark. I pulled out my phone, my fingers numb from the cold, and dialed the non-emergency line. The dispatcher's calm voice promised a social services van within the hour. From the corner of my eye, I saw Margaret roll her eyes so hard I thought she might pull a muscle. "Let's hope she doesn't sue us," she muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. Ethan snorted. Lila whispered something to him and they both laughed. Evelyn just patted my hand, her touch gentle but firm. "You don't need to stay," she said. "I'm used to waiting." "No," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "You shouldn't have to." We sat there, the rain drumming on the porch roof, the wind rattling the windows. 20 minutes ticked by, each one heavier than the last. I kept my eyes on the street, expecting the flashing lights of a city van. Instead, a sleek black Mercedes rolled into the cul-de-sac, its headlights cutting through the storm like a blade. It stopped right in front of our house, silent and imposing. The driver stepped out, a tall man in a black suit, unfazed by the rain. He opened the back door and walked toward us, holding an umbrella that didn't buckle. "Miss Evelyn Fontaine," he said, his voice formal but warm. Evelyn stood slowly, letting go of my hand, but not before giving it a gentle squeeze. "I'm all right now," she said softly. "Thank you, dear." The driver took her arm, guiding her to the car. As it pulled away, I caught a glimpse of her silhouette in the back seat, her posture straight, almost regal. My jacket was still draped over her shoulders. I turned to go inside, my legs heavy, my mind racing. Margaret was already storming down the steps, her wineglass sloshing. "Well, that was dramatic," she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "What's next, Zoya? A viral post about how you saved a sad old lady in the rain?" Ethan and Lila snickered from the doorway. I didn't respond. I hauled the groceries inside, the plastic bags cutting into my palms, and started unpacking. Milk in the fridge, cereal on the counter. The rain pounded the kitchen window, louder now, like it was trying to tell me something. I wiped down the counter, the cloth cold and damp in my hand, and tried to focus on the rhythm of it. Clink of cans, hum of the fridge. Anything to drown out their voices. Then I heard it. Engines. Not one, but many, low and smooth, like a pack of wolves circling. I froze, a carton of eggs still in my hand. I walked to the living room window and pulled back the curtain. My breath caught. 9 black SUVs lined the street, their tinted windows gleaming under the streetlights. They sat there, silent, engines idling, like they were waiting for something or someone. My heart thudded against my ribs. Ethan was already at the door, his face pale, his usual smirk gone. Lila stood behind him, clutching her phone, her eyes wide. Margaret gripped the doorway, her voice a harsh whisper. "What the hell did you do, Zoya?" The lead SUV's door opened, and a tall man in a tailored gray suit stepped out, holding a clipboard. He didn't flinch as the wind whipped his tie. He looked straight at me, his gaze cutting through the rain. "Ms. Kessler," he said, his voice calm but commanding. "Evelyn would like a word with you." Every pair of eyes in the house snapped to me. Ethan's mouth hung open. Lila's phone slipped from her hand, clattering on the hardwood. Margaret's wineglass trembled, a drop spilling onto her robe. I felt their thoughts as clearly as if they'd screamed them. What's happening? Why you? Who is she? My pulse roared in my ears, but I straightened my back, set the eggs down, and stepped forward. The door clicked shut behind me, heavy and final, as I walked into the storm. The SUV's interior was warm, smelling faintly of leather and lavender. I slid into the back seat, my damp clothes sticking to the upholstery. Across from me sat Evelyn, her hands folded neatly over a silk clutch. She looked nothing like the trembling woman I'd helped just minutes ago. Her gray hair was smoothed back, her eyes sharp and clear, like she'd shed a disguise. "Zoya," she said, her voice warm like we were old friends meeting for coffee. "I hope you're comfortable." I nodded, my throat tight. My fingers fidgeted on my knee, still cold from the rain. "You're not homeless?" I asked, the words slipping out before I could stop them. She smiled, the lines around her eyes softening. "No, dear, but thank you for treating me as if that didn't matter." She leaned forward slightly, her gaze steady. "I vanish sometimes, slip into the corners of the world where people don't look. You'd be surprised how fast they show you who they are when they think you have nothing." I glanced out the tinted window. My family was still on the porch, huddled together like a pack of spooked animals. Ethan's hands were on his hips. Lila was whispering frantically into her phone, and Margaret's frozen smile was the one she used when her perfect world started to crack. "Why me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Evelyn didn't hesitate. "Because you didn't flinch. You didn't patronize. You didn't perform kindness to be seen." Her words hit like a punch, soft but heavy. My throat tightened, and I looked down at my hands, the chipped nail polish, the calluses from carrying trays all day. I hadn't done anything special. I'd just done what felt right. "Exactly," Evelyn said, as if reading my thoughts, "and that's what makes it extraordinary." She reached into her clutch and pulled out a slim ivory envelope, holding it out, but not yet handing it to me. Her eyes studied my face, searching for something. "I don't offer this to many people," she said, "but I owe you a favor, a meaningful one. Whatever you need, ask." I blinked, my mind scrambling. I don't need anything," I said, my voice small. The idea of asking for anything felt wrong, like I was breaking some unspoken rule. I wasn't used to being offered things without a catch. "Then don't see it as a reward," she said, her eyes glinting. "Think of it as an investment in someone worth investing in." She placed the envelope in my hand, its weight light but somehow heavy with promise. "Think about it," she said, "and check your inbox tonight." Before I could respond, the driver opened the door. I stepped out into the rain, the envelope tucked inside my hoodie. The SUVs were still there, their engines a low hum, their presence looming. Ethan took a step toward me, his voice sharp. "What the hell was that, Zoya?" Lila's eyes narrowed. "Who is she? What's going on?" Margaret stood at the top of the porch, her arms folded. "Zoya, don't you dare drag this family into your weird little stunts again." I looked at them, their faces so familiar, so full of judgment. "She remembered my name," I said simply. Ethan scoffed. "That's it?" I gave a small smile. "That's enough." I walked past them, the screen door slamming behind me, the sound sharp and final. Inside, the house felt colder than the storm outside. I went through the motions, putting away the groceries, wiping down the counter, ignoring the sting of their words, but my mind kept circling back to Evelyn, to the envelope burning a hole in my pocket. I didn't open it, not yet. Instead, I climbed the stairs to my room, the only space in this house that still felt like mine, and locked the door. The rain battered the window, relentless, but I barely heard it. All I could think about was her voice, soft but certain. "Check your inbox tonight." I sat on the edge of my bed, my laptop glowing in the dark. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, hesitant. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to pretend none of this had happened. But curiosity, sharp, insistent, won out. I opened my email, and there it was, sitting at the top of my inbox. Subject line, Zoya Kessler, a conversation worth having. My heart skipped. I clicked it open, and the world tilted. 3 attachments stared back at me. Character summary, proposal, observations. My breath caught as I opened the first file. It wasn't a cold background check. It was a story. My story. Notes about my freelance photography, praise from a small blog editor I'd forgotten about, a quote I'd posted in an online forum about helping a neighbor during a power outage. The observations file went deeper, pulling up moments I didn't think anyone had noticed. Declined payment for helping a single mom with her kid's school project. Never bragged about volunteer work. Stood up for a coworker despite family disapproval. One line in elegant cursive stopped me cold. Kindness given freely is power in disguise. I leaned back, my chest tight, my eyes burning. Who was Evelyn? How did she know these things? And why did it feel like she saw me, really saw me, in a way my own family never had? I glanced at the window, half expecting to see those SUVs still parked outside. Instead, I heard a soft chime from the driveway. It bolted to the window, my heart pounding. A single black SUV was pulling away, its taillights fading into the storm. The back window lowered just a crack, and her voice floated out, faint but unmistakable. "Zoya, check your inbox tonight." Then she was gone. I didn't sleep that night. The email glowed on my screen, its words seeping into me like the rain outside. I read it again, then again, letting each line settle. The proposal file was the heaviest, an invitation to a private brunch at Evelyn's estate in Bellevue. No RSVP required, just my name and a quote. Those who judge least often carry the most. I closed the laptop, my hands shaking, and stared at the ceiling. The storm had quieted, but something inside me was just beginning to roar. I didn't tell anyone where I was going the next morning. Not Margaret, who was already sipping her coffee in the kitchen, her robe stained with last night's wine. Not Ethan, who'd probably make some snide remark about my charity case. Not Lila, who'd text her friends about how I was chasing clout. I slipped out before dawn, the envelope still in my pocket, my heart pounding with something I couldn't name. Not fear, not excitement, but something alive. The bus ride to Bellevue was long, the city waking up under a gray sky. I transferred to a train, then a rideshare, keeping my head down, avoiding the driver's curious glance when I gave him the address. "You sure that's where you're going?" he asked, eyeing my faded jeans and scuffed sneakers. "That's a gated place, big money." I'm expected. The gates opened without a word, smooth and silent, like they'd been waiting for me. Security greeted me by name, their smiles warm, not stiff. One offered me water, another carried my worn tote bag like it was designer. Evelyn's estate didn't scream wealth, it whispered it. Ivy climbed stone pillars, citrus trees bloomed in the air, and the silence felt alive, like the land itself was holding its breath. I followed a garden path to the house, my sneakers soft on the gravel. The door opened before I could knock. Evelyn stood there, dressed in cream slacks and a blue linen blouse, holding 2 mugs of tea. Her gray hair was swept back, her eyes bright and knowing. "You came," she said, smiling. "I wasn't sure if I should," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "And yet here you are," she said, handing me a mug. "Come." She didn't lead me to a dining room. Instead, we walked through a sunlit hallway lined with portraits, sketches, photographs, faces without names. "This man?" she said, pointing to a faded photo of a janitor with kind eyes. Invented a water filtration system that saved a town from drought. Never got credit. She moved to a watercolor of a young woman in a hoodie. She taught coding to kids in her trailer park. Never finished college herself. Each portrait was a story. Each story a life the world had overlooked. I followed her, my tea cooling in my hands, my chest tightening with every step. We reached a patio overlooking a quiet lake, a single swan drifting across the water. Evelyn poured me orange juice and sat across from me, her gaze steady. "Tell me, Zoya," she said, her voice soft but piercing. "What do you want? Not what you do, not what you've survived. What do you want?" The question hit like a stone in still water. No one had ever asked me that. Not like this. Not like they meant it. I looked at my plate, then back at her, and for once, I didn't hold back. "I want peace," I said, my voice raw. "Not the kind you beg for in fights. I want to wake up and not feel like I owe someone an explanation for existing. I want to stop being the one who fixes everything, who takes the blame so others don't have to feel bad. I want to matter without screaming for it." The words hung in the air, heavy and true. Evelyn nodded, her eyes never leaving mine. "The people who break you aren't always strangers," she said, her voice soft as the wind. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small velvet envelope. "Maybe it's time you had a space where your voice doesn't echo back unanswered." I opened it slowly, my fingers trembling. Inside was a notarized letter, a deed to a downtown Seattle property, a creative studio Evelyn had never used but had kept for the right person. I stared at it, my breath shallow. "Why me?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Because you didn't look away when others did," she said, her eyes locked on mine, "and that is rarer than wealth." The deed felt heavier than it should have, not in weight but in meaning. My phone buzzed on the table, shattering the moment. Margaret's name lit up the screen like a warning. I didn't answer, but I could already hear her voice, sharp and accusing. I stood, tucking the envelope into my bag. "I need to go," I said, my voice steady despite the storm in my chest. Evelyn nodded. "Do check your inbox tonight," she said, her smile knowing. I walked out, the air charged, the world watching. As I stepped through the gates, I knew nothing would ever be the same. The studio's keys felt like a secret I wasn't ready to carry. They jingled in my pocket as I stepped off the rideshare, the Seattle skyline looming behind me, its lights smudged by the lingering drizzle. The downtown street was alive with the hum of late-night coffee shops and the clatter of delivery bikes, but the building in front of me was quiet, tucked between a consignment bookstore and a laundromat that smelled faintly of detergent and despair. Its brick facade was weathered, the windows clouded with dust, but it was mine. Evelyn's deed had made that clear. A creative studio, a blank canvas, a chance to build something from nothing. My heart thudded, not with excitement, but with the weight of what it meant to start over. I unlocked the door, the bolt grinding like it hadn't been touched in years. The air inside was stale, heavy with the scent of old paint and forgotten dreams. I flicked on the single overhead bulb, its weak light casting shadows across bare floors and cracked walls. My sneakers echoed as I stepped inside, my tote bag slung over my shoulder, the velvet envelope still tucked inside. I set it down on a rickety table, the only piece of furniture in the room, and stood there, staring at the emptiness. This was it. My new beginning. But all I could hear was Margaret's voice from that morning, sharp as broken glass. "You think some rich old woman's handout makes you special, Zoya? You're chasing a fantasy." I pushed the thought away and started exploring. The studio was small, maybe 800 square feet, with a tiny kitchenette in the back and a bathroom that looked like it hadn't been cleaned since the Clinton administration. A narrow staircase led to a loft above, its railing wobbly and splintered. I climbed it anyway, testing each step, my breath catching when one creaked under my weight. At the top, a single window overlooked the alley, where rain pooled in potholes and a stray cat darted past a dumpster. I pressed my forehead against the glass, the cold seeping into my skin. This place wasn't just a gift, it was a challenge. Evelyn hadn't given me a polished gallery. She'd given me a ruin to rebuild. I was halfway down the stairs when a loud crack split the air. My foot slipped and I grabbed the railing just as it gave way, wood splintering under my grip. I stumbled, my heart lurching as I caught myself on the wall, splinters biting into my palm. The broken railing dangled, swinging like a pendulum. I stood there, chest heaving, blood trickling from my hand. The studio wasn't just old, it was dangerous. I wrapped my sleeve around the cut, my pulse racing. This is fine, I told myself, fixable. But as I descended, the floorboards groaned, and I couldn't shake the feeling that this place was testing me as much as Evelyn had. Back downstairs, I rummaged through my bag for a bandage, my hand still shaking. That's when my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Hey, I want to volunteer. Grandma says I'm grounded if I talk to you, but I don't care. Mia." My youngest cousin, barely 15, with her quiet defiance and sharp eyes. My throat tightened, a flicker of warmth cutting through the cold. Mia remembered me. She saw me. I typed a quick reply, "Meet me tomorrow, noon," and hit send before I could overthink it. Someone believed in me, even if my family didn't. That was enough to keep going. The next morning, I woke on a thin blanket spread across the studio floor, my back aching from the hard wood. The cut on my hand throbbed, but I ignored it, splashing cold water on my face from the kitchenette sink. I had work to do. I started with the basics, sweeping dust, scrubbing grime from the tiles, dragging a lopsided chair from the corner and wiping it clean. It was threadbare, the cushions sagging, but I tightened its legs and set it by the window like it belonged. This place would be more than a ruin. It would be a home for the overlooked, a space where women like me, cast aside, underestimated, could breathe again. I was sanding a workbench when a faint hiss filled the air, sharp and chemical. My nose stung and my eyes watered. I froze, my heart pounding. The smell was unmistakable. Gas. I dropped the sandpaper and bolted to the kitchenette where a rusty pipe ran along the wall. The hiss was louder there, the air thick with the acrid scent. Panic clawed at my chest. I didn't know where the shut-off valve was, or if there even was one. I grabbed my phone, my fingers fumbling as I dialed 901. "Gas leak," I managed, my voice shaking. "Downtown, 4th Avenue. Hurry!" The operator's calm voice told me to get out and wait for the fire department. I stumbled to the door, my lungs burning, and threw it open, gulping fresh air. The street was quiet, the morning fog still clinging to the pavement. I stood there, shivering in my hoodie as sirens wailed in the distance. My mind raced. Had I caused this? Was the studio a trap, not a gift? The fire truck arrived and a team in heavy gear swept inside, shutting off the gas line within minutes. "Old pipes," one of them said, shaking his head. "You're lucky you caught it early." Lucky. The word felt hollow as I watched them leave. I sank onto the curb, my hands trembling. The studio was supposed to be my chance, not a death trap. I pulled out my phone and texted Evelyn, my fingers hesitant. "Gas leak in the studio. It's fixed, but I almost didn't make it." Her reply came instantly. "I'm sending electricians and plumbers tomorrow. Stay safe, Zoya. You're stronger than you know." I stared at her words, my chest tight. She trusted me to keep going, even when I wasn't sure I could. Mia arrived at noon, her backpack slung over one shoulder, her dark hair tucked under a beanie. She looked nervous but determined, her eyes darting around the studio. "This place is rough," she said, kicking a loose floorboard. "But it's cool. What are we doing?" I smiled, grateful for her presence. "Making it ours," I said. "A space for people who've been told they don't matter." We spent the afternoon painting soft teal over cracked drywall, each stroke a rebellion against the silence I'd lived with for years. Mia didn't ask about Margaret or the others, and I didn't bring them up. We worked in quiet rhythm, the radio playing old rock songs, the air smelling of paint and possibility. That evening, as Mia left, I heard tires crunch on the gravel outside. I peeked through the blinds and saw a white sedan idling in the alley. My Aunt Nora, Margaret's sister, stepped out, her arms crossed, her face pinched. I wiped my paint-stained hands on my jeans and stepped outside, bracing myself. She didn't even look at the fresh paint or the stack of lumber I'd scavenged. "You think some concrete walls make you independent?" she said, her voice sharp. "This isn't a life, Zoya. It's a tantrum." Ill with it, I leaned against the doorframe, letting her words bounce off me. "And what do you think?" I asked, my voice calm but firm. She hesitated, her eyes narrowing. "I think you used to be smarter than this." She turned and walked back to her car, not waiting for a reply. I watched her drive away, the sedan's tail lights fading into the dusk. Her words stung, but they didn't break me. Not anymore. The next morning, I was scrubbing tiles when 4 sharp knocks landed on the door. I opened it to find my brother-in-law, Greg, standing there, his shoulders stiff, holding a manila envelope like it was a bomb. "From your parents," he said flatly. "You've been officially removed from the will." I didn't reach for it. He dropped it on the porch, the paper landing with a dull thud. "I wasn't expecting anything anyway," I muttered. "That's not the point," he said, his voice low. "They wanted you to know." He left without another word. I stared at the envelope, my chest tight, then brought it inside and tucked it into a drawer, unopened. It wasn't about money. It was about control, about reminding me I was nothing to them. That afternoon, Evelyn's contractors arrived, their toolboxes clanking as they checked the wiring and plumbing. "This place is a mess," one of them said, but his tone was kind. "We'll get it up to code." I nodded, grateful for Evelyn's trust, even as doubt gnawed at me. What if I failed? What if this studio was just another way to prove Margaret right? The doubt grew heavier that night when I heard a crash outside. I grabbed a flashlight and crept to the window, my heart pounding. The alley was dark, but I saw movement. 2 figures in hoodies, one holding a crowbar. They were prying at the studio's back door, the metal screeching. My stomach dropped. I dialed 911 again, whispering my address, my voice shaking. "Someone's trying to break in." The police arrived in minutes, their flashlights sweeping the alley. The figures were gone, but the door was dented, the lock mangled. "Probably kids," the officer said. "You're lucky they didn't get in." There was that word again. Lucky. I didn't feel lucky. I felt like the world was trying to tear this place apart before I could even start. I didn't sleep that night, my eyes fixed on the dented door, my phone clutched in my hand. At dawn, I started cleaning again, scrubbing harder, as if I could erase the fear. Evelyn's words echoed in my mind. "You're stronger than you know." I had to believe her, because giving up wasn't an option. A week later, Evelyn appeared at the studio, her knock soft but unmistakable. She stepped inside, her eyes scanning the half-painted walls and the folding chairs I'd scavenged. "It reminds me of my first office," she said, her voice warm. Only I had ugly brown carpet and a broken fan. I laughed, the sound surprising me. I haven't even figured out where the bathroom sign goes, I said. She tapped a paint-stained ruler against the wall. They told me I looked ridiculous in a hard hat, she said, her voice low and firm. Said I should marry well and let a man build my dreams. So I built a tech empire instead. Her eyes met mine. There's a retreat coming up, private, for women founders. No suits, no panels, just space to think. I'm inviting you. Everything's covered. I blinked, my heart racing. Why? Because someone opened a door for me once, she said. I'm returning the favor. The retreat was at a lakeside lodge in the Cascades, its polished wood and glass windows a stark contrast to the studio's grit. I arrived in a borrowed blazer, 2 sizes too big, its shoulder pads swallowing me. Women in tailored cashmere and minimalist jewelry filled the room, their eyes flicking my way, some curious, some calculating. I felt like an imposter, my sneakers scuffing the polished floor. At the coffee table, a woman in a green sweater handed me a cup. "Don't let their pearls fool you," she said with a wink. "They started somewhere, too." Her kindness steadied me, a small anchor in the storm of nerves. During a breakout session, Evelyn introduced me to Nora, a venture capitalist with a sharp presence and a voice that carried weight. "This is Zoya," Evelyn said. "She's building something worth seeing." Nora's eyes narrowed slightly. "What kind of something?" I took a breath, my hands steady. "A space for women who've been overlooked," I said. "A place to rebuild, to create, to belong. I call it home for the overlooked." Nora tapped her notebook. "That name sticks. I'd like to see your studio tomorrow." I didn't sleep that night. My mind spun, rearranging the studio's layout in my head. The shelves, the lighting, the cracked mural I'd hung above the entryway. It was a piece I'd made years ago, shattered in a fight with Ethan, but I'd pieced it back together, its golden seams a reminder of survival. By dawn I was up, scrubbing the floors until they gleamed, arranging clay sculptures by mood, not color. The mural hung proudly, its cracks lit by the morning sun. I was ready, or as ready as I'd ever be. Nora arrived at mid-morning, her navy blazer crisp over jeans that probably cost more than my car. Her heels clicked softly on the floor, deliberate, not loud. She didn't shake my hand, just nodded. "It smells like real clay in here," she said. Smiled. "I hope that's a compliment." She walked the room, her fingers grazing a glazed platter, then paused at the mural. "That piece, the broken one. Why hang it where everyone sees it?" "Because it didn't shatter all the way," I said, my voice steady. "And neither did I." She nodded, her brow lifting slightly. "Why stay after they laughed at you, mocked your work, your name?" I met her gaze. "Because their laughter sounds like home, and I'm done letting it define me." Nora's lips twitched, not quite a smile. She stood by the window looking out at the scraggly backyard. "You're not asking for validation," she said. "That's rare." She handed me a business card, scribbling a name, May, and a number on the back. "Call her. Don't pitch, just talk." Then she was gone, leaving only the faint scent of citrus and leather. That night I dialed May's number, my hands shaking. "Zoya?" she answered, her voice warm. "I know who you are. Evelyn's talked about you. I'm with the Mid-State Arts Council. We're reviewing candidates for an independent creator grant. I'd like you to apply." I blinked. "You'd like me to apply? I don't even have a portfolio yet." "You have breath, don't you?" she said, chuckling. "That's a start." We talked for 10 minutes, about clay, about grief, about the way creating something with your hands can heal a heart that's been told it's not enough. By the time I hung up, I'd opened the grant application link. It was daunting. Bios, goals, attachments. But the final question stopped me. In your own words, what is your mission? I stared at it for hours, my mind circling back to Evelyn, to Mia, to the mural's golden seams. Finally, I typed, to build a space where the overlooked become unforgettable. My hands trembled as I hit submit, not from fear, but from choosing myself. The next morning, I sent a group text to my family. Nothing dramatic. Something good might be coming. I'll let you know if it lands. Margaret's reply was instant. An art grant? What's next, a Pulitzer for doodling? Ethan chimed in. Stop embarrassing yourself, Zoya. You look desperate. Their words hit like a slap, not because they were cruel, but because they were rehearsed, waiting for me to fail. I hovered over the delete button, my finger trembling. Then I remembered Evelyn's voice. You sound like home. I closed my eyes, whispered the words, and kept going. Days later, as I was hauling paint cans to the studio, a truck roared past, its tires screeching as it swerved toward me. I jumped back, my heart in my throat, the cans clattering to the sidewalk. The driver didn't stop, didn't look back. I stood there, shaking, paint splattered on my jeans. Was it an accident, or had someone meant to scare me? I didn't know, but I picked up the cans and kept walking, my jaw tight. This was my space, and no one, not a truck, not my family, would take it from me. The grant decision came at midnight, a soft chime pulling me from folding laundry on the studio's old couch. The subject line read, Spring Civic Arts Showcase Official Decision. My fingers hovered, my breath shallow. I tapped it open. Congratulations, your application has been selected for full funding and featured inclusion in the Spring Civic Arts Showcase. I reread it, then again, my hands cold, my heart racing. I sank to the floor, the email glowing like a beacon. Tears came, quiet and warm, not from sadness, but from a stillness I hadn't felt in years. I called Evelyn, my voice barely a whisper. I got it. You ready to make them eat their words? She said, her tone gentle but proud. Because I am. The next week was a blur. I repaired the mural, naming it Legacy, its golden threads stitched with real care. Volunteers arrived, strangers, neighbors, even my landlord, who brought paint buckets and a grudging smile. Guess I should stop threatening eviction, he said. You're putting us on the map. I handed him a brush, my lips twitching. But not everyone was cheering. At dinner, Margaret glanced up from her phone, her voice casual but cutting. Heard your name at the Civic Center, Zoya. What's that about? My father didn't look up from his steak. Heard they're showcasing trash now. Good for them. I paused, my fork in the air. Thanks, I said, and kept eating, the food tasteless but my resolve iron. The showcase day arrived under gray skies, but my chest felt light. The Civic Arts Center gleamed, its glass doors tall and unyielding. A banner stretched across the atrium, Spring Civic Arts Showcase, featuring Zoya Kessler, my name public, permanent. Evelyn stood nearby, speaking with city council members, her presence radiant but grounded. Break a leg, she mouthed. I smiled, my nerves electric. People poured in. Families, students, artists I'd admired from afar. They touched my sculptures, traced the mural's seams, whispered their own stories into the quiet. Then I saw Lila, her sunglasses pushed up, her eyes red-rimmed. She wasn't here to celebrate. She was here to salvage something. She approached Evelyn, her voice low but frantic. Ruth, please, you don't understand. Evelyn's reply was sharp, final. Ethical conflicts, Lila. That's what we call it when your fiancé funnels city funds into his private projects. Lila's face crumpled, and she turned toward me, her eyes pleading. I didn't flinch. I walked to the podium, the crowd hushing, the mic waiting. I gripped the wood, the spotlight hot on my face. Most people think cruelty is loud, I began, my voice steady. But sometimes it's the silence that breaks you. The room leaned in, every eye on me. When I was 12, I saw a woman crying in a grocery store, her coat torn, her pride shattered. I gave her my lunch money. My mother laughed, said I'd wasted it. But that was the first time I chose dignity over comfort. A screen flickered behind me, showing clips I hadn't planned. Me shaping clay with kids at a shelter, elderly women painting broken vases, gold, their laughter filling the air. Voices faded in. She helped me believe again. She didn't care I couldn't pay. She looked me in the eye like I mattered. The crowd sniffled, the lights warm, earned. I kept going. My art isn't about fame. It's about the parts of ourselves we're told are worthless, and the people we become when we decide that's not true. Applause broke out, soft, then thunderous. Evelyn nodded, her smile quiet. My family stood at the back, Margaret stiff, my father staring at the floor, Lila clutching her fiancé's arm. The mayor stepped forward holding a certificate. For contributions to the dignity and artistic life of this city, she read, we proclaim this day Restoration Through Art Day. I took the frame, my hands steady, and whispered, thank you. My father's voice cut through the applause. Zoya, can we talk outside? I handed the certificate to Evelyn, who gave me a quick thumbs up. Outside, the evening air was cool, the courtyard quiet. Margaret's jewelry gleamed, but her eyes were restless. Why didn't you tell us she was important? She asked, her voice sharp. I looked past them, the sunset painting the bricks gold. Because you were supposed to be, I said softly. Silence. My father cleared his throat. So what now? I've been appointed to the Arts Council, I said, my voice even. Every public grant proposal goes across my desk, including development projects. Lila's fiancé's name hung unspoken, their faces pale. I turned and walked back inside, their silence heavy, but no longer mine to carry. The NBC crew waved me over for an interview. Ready? The reporter asked, her mic poised. I nodded, the camera lights dimming as I spoke, my story no longer theirs to shape. The clip aired that night, a 3-minute segment that spread like wildfire. My phone buzzed with messages, strangers, old friends, a girl who said my speech made her feel seen. By midnight, it had 80,000 shares. I didn't respond. I turned off my phone and stood in the studio, staring at an unfinished canvas. Its gray wash was waiting for something bigger. Now, I knew what.